Nadhim Zahawi is one of the wealthiest people in Parliament. His fortune is estimated to be somewhere around £100 million, but he's either a bit disorganised with that cash or likes to keep it away from the taxman. They are, I think, the only conclusions we can draw from the fact that Zahawi has been forced to pay more than £1 million to HMRC as a penalty for unpaid tax. The Guardian has the story. They report this. A source familiar with the payment told The Guardian a penalty was triggered as a result of non-payment of capital gains tax due after the sale of shares in YouGov, the polling company Zahawi co-founded. He could have been subject to larger penalties had he not reached a settlement towards the end of last year, they claim. Experts estimate the tax due was about £3.7 million based on the capital gains tax incurred by the sale of multiple tranches of shares in YouGov worth more than £20 million, which led to transfers of money to Zahawi. It is understood HMRC applied a 30% penalty to that £3.7 million, bringing the total due to £4.8 million. Combined with interest charges that HMRC also applies to taxes owed, this is believed to have taken the final settlement to more than £5 million. Now, when asked about The Guardian's allegations, Zahawi's spokesperson didn't deny that a penalty had been paid, saying this: Nadhim Zahawi does not recognise this amount, as he has previously stated his taxes are properly declared and paid in the UK. Well, they are now. It seems like for a while they weren't. You might ask, if they were properly declared, why did he have to pay £1 million plus penalty? Something doesn't quite add up there. Now, the fine relates to a company called Balshaw Investments, which held the £20 million made from the sale of Zahawi's YouGov shares. It's an entity registered in tax haven Gibraltar. Zahawi has long described it as a family trust, and last summer declared that he had no financial interest in it and had never benefited financially from it. But last summer it was reported that the National Crime Agency had investigated Zahawi's finances and that HMRC was also taking a closer look. So when those allegations were made, this is how he responded to those claims when Sky's Kay Burley asked him about them in July.
I need to ask you about your investigation into your own tax affairs. What was your reaction when you saw reports that your own tax affairs were being investigated by your own department?
So I was clearly being smeared. I was being told that the Serious Fraud Office, that the National Crime Agency, that HMRC are looking into me. I'm not aware of this. I've always declared my taxes. I paid my taxes in the UK. I will answer any questions HMRC has of me.
So for context, that was during Zahawi's bid to be Prime Minister. And it might seem as though this should be a scandal. After all, Zahawi was the Chancellor for a brief period, the person in charge of setting tax rules for the rest of us. And he's still a government minister as well as chairman of the Conservative Party. But the Tories' response so far has been very much nothing to see here. Have a listen to what Michael Gove said on Radio 4. He was speaking after the news that Zahawi had made a multi-million-pound payment to the taxman, but before it was revealed that a penalty was also involved.
What you very carefully said is he says he's paid all his tax, as in he's now paid all of his tax. The suggestion is that he had to pay millions, not the odd £100 or £1,000 here or there, millions of pounds in unpaid back tax. And I'd just ask you, are you effectively saying to the public, nothing to see here, it's all his private business, you've no right to know?
No, because, again, you're very skillful in sort of taking the essence of my answer, which you fairly understood, and then sort of presenting it as though I was trying to be high-handed and all the rest of it. What I would prefer to say is HMRC are the tax authorities. They should scrutinise everyone's tax return and make it clear to individuals and organisations what they should pay. People should and must pay up. My firm understanding is that HMRC have no quibble with Nadhim. He's paid everything that he should, and people paying their taxes, I don't think is a story. People not paying their taxes, that is a problem.
Now, if the Guardian story is correct, it really does imply that this is a story about someone not paying their tax, or not having paid their tax, at least. In Prime Minister's Questions, Rishi Sunak was asked about the case too.
This month, the right honourable member for Stratford-upon-Avon was forced to pay millions to HMRC to settle a tax dispute. Was the Prime Minister aware of the investigation when he appointed him to his cabinet and as chairman of the Conservative Party? Will the Prime Minister demand accountability from his cabinet members about their tax affairs?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend has already addressed this matter in full, and that's nothing more that I can add.
So again, before news of the penalty emerged, so after it emerged that he'd have to give multi-millions in payments to HMRC, but before we precisely knew there was this 30% penalty. So that's the situation when The Guardian contacted the Prime Minister's office for comment on the case, and he said this: Sunak's official spokesperson said Zahawi has spoken and been transparent with HMRC despite his refusal to answer specific questions. She added, quote, "I don't know whether the Prime Minister has reviewed it in full, but I do know that he takes Nadhim Zahawi at his word." Asked if Sunak was confident he knew everything he needed to know about the affair, she responded yes, and said he had full confidence in Zahawi. Now, Sunak might come to regret that confidence. The HMRC have said, of course, that it won't comment on the tax arrangements of individuals, but Labour has demanded an inquiry into the former Chancellor's tax affairs. And Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has written to HMRC saying this: "It is manifestly in the public interest for HMRC to explain the nature of this payment and whether the man who just months ago was in charge of the nation's finances and HMRC itself has admitted fault or incurred financial penalties as part of his settlement. Ordinary British taxpayers would incur financial penalties if they had displayed a lack of reasonable care that deprived the public purse of significant revenue, and urgent clarity is needed in this case if the growing suspicion of double standards or preferential treatment is to be avoided." Labour have now called for Zahawi to resign. As I said, I've been switching sometimes between fine and penalty. Everyone seems to be saying this is a penalty because I think he agreed to pay it, but he was also forced to pay it. I think if he'd refused to pay it and then been taken to court and lost, it would have become a fine. I mean, to me, in ordinary parlance, the guy's been fined. Aaron, should he resign over this?
I mean, he should resign. There's lots of these questions we've had with regards to the Conservatives over the last several years. I mean, he should resign. I don't think he will resign, but I think he should resign. And it's important to say, Michael, that Mr. Zahawi is a very mercurial, interesting, curious individual. He also didn't declare his chairmanship of an organization called Le Cercle, which is a CIA-funded Atlanticist think tank, very murky. Not much is known about it. Was a really big supporter of apartheid and opposition to communism before the early 1990s. Very, very strange Atlanticist body. He was chairing that between 2015 and 2018. Extraordinarily wealthy man. And I think the fact you have somebody like that operating at the very top of public life and politics in this country, and with such little accountability and scrutiny, and who seemingly now can get away with something like this and not pay the price politically, i.e. having to submit his resignation, I think says a lot, not just about the Conservative Party, but the state of British politics. Very decadent public sphere and political life that we have in this country. If somebody like Zahawi can keep on getting away with these things, and like I say, something so extraordinary as tax, I think, that is something which everybody in the country, whether they're Conservative, Lib Dem, Labour voters, or none of the above, would find really unacceptable from an elected official, particularly somebody as wealthy as Zahawi. And yet, so far, he's not tendered his resignation. He should do. Labour are right to call for it. Sometimes, you have the opposition parties calling for resignations, and it's a bit of a storm in a teacup. This is most certainly not that. He should do the right thing and resign. I suspect he won't, but I hope that Labour and parts of the media carry on with this story, terrier-like, and if Zahawi doesn't do the right thing, well, his reputation should descend further into the mire.
Yeah, and to me, it does really seem as if there are two options which both should probably lead to resignation. So the one option, as I say, is that he has no idea what he's doing with his money, not a particularly organised person. He, by accident, didn't pay £3 million that he owed in tax and then ended up getting a 30% penalty for it. So it's just a pretty disorganised guy. The other option is he was actively hiding it. Those seem like the two options to me. Or he got an accountant who was very disorganised, I'm not sure. This is a man who is currently the chair of the Conservative Party, so he should be organising their money. This is the guy who should be on top of what donations they're getting and declaring it all. Now, do you trust this guy to declare those donations properly? And even worse, he was Chancellor, Right, so this was a guy who was Chancellor of the Exchequer who either can't organise his millions to the extent that he forgets to pay the taxman over £3 million or has been actively trying to minimise the amount of tax he pays to the taxman. Neither of those make the guy look good.